We live on an ocean planet. 71% of this world is covered with it, and there's a lot going on below the waves. I don't just mean currents and tectonic activity, I mean life, a lot of it. The animals in the ocean are some of the most fascinating our planet has to offer. Movies, books, and a lot of other visual media has made them known to more than just the scientists that study them. It's had a bit of an appeal to me ever since I was young. I liked learning about ocean creatures almost as much as the planets. However, the more I learned about sea life, the more I saw the frightening aspects of it. Not all ocean dwellers are these majestic, beautiful creatures you see here. Some are menacing predators that top the ocean food chain. Others that may not be so aggressive have enough toxins in their bodies to end a person's life. For every beautiful and intriguing creature there is in the ocean, there's an equal number of ugly, scary, or repulsive animals down there too. If you ever think about doing extended deep sea diving, it's best to be wary of what you can run into or what can run into you down there. So allow me to inform you about some of the scary creatures that live under the sea. Hey, no Disney music! Okay, let's get the most obvious ones out of the way first. Sharks are probably the first thing you think of when you consider what's scary about the ocean. It's not unreasonable for them to have this reputation. Their quick movements and powerful jaws with rows of teeth that can be replaced easily make them terrifying by nature. Everybody's probably seen a shark in some form or another. I mean, there are enough bad shark movies out there now to justify it becoming a genre of its own. The producers of these films, money-hungry or otherwise, usually make sharks the villain. It's almost always the great white shark that's singled out as the most gruesome. From Jaws to Sharknado, this shark has starred in too many movies and probably a lot of nightmares as well. The poster fish for undersea horror indeed. I think this may stem from them being among the most common species of shark. From what I've seen, I understand why great white sharks are so infamous. I'm not exactly fond of them either, but it's not the only fearsome type of shark in the ocean. It's not even the biggest. There are other sharks that are just as, if not more, scary than a great white. Here's one that's able to cut out perfectly circular bites of flesh from larger creatures. This one can literally shoot its jaws out to grab onto prey. And then there's this one that produces an irritating and sufferable tune which I will not replicate in this video. Children have fallen victim to this shark's music, repeating it ad nauseum. Of course, it's now taken the top spot of most viewed YouTube video of all time. This further demonstrates how this site has devolved from an opportune showcase for individual talent to a corporate shill focused on marketability ahead of everything else. Maybe this is the scariest shark of all. Oh wait, this is a fictional shark. You'd never run into this one in the ocean. Forget it, I'm still keeping it here. I understand that not all sharks are these formidable killing machines. Some of them are pretty harmless to humans. In fact, the two biggest shark species, the whale shark and basking shark, are mainly filter feeders that eat plankton. While I will admit it would be nerve-wracking to see these huge open mouths coming towards you as you're swimming, but if you stay out of their path at times like these, you'll be fine. I'll admit, sharks are quite fascinating creatures to see in motion. The divers who swim with them are really taking their lives in their hands, though. Often, you see them in a diving cage rather than out in the open water with them. That does sound like the safe option. Unless they do that. It's said that if a shark starts to get too curious and starts to circle nearer to you, punching it in the nose will get it away from you. Having first heard that from an episode of Hey Arnold, I thought that only worked in cartoons. As it turns out, that advice isn't entirely without merit. Sharks have an extremely keen sense of smell with electroreceptors around their noses. So the nose is a sensitive part of the shark's body. However, the eyes and gills are really more sensitive, so aiming for them is a better course of action, I'm told. Well, actually, all this should really only be done as a very last resort. Instead of going head-to-head with a shark that's getting too close, it's better to swim slowly away from it without panicking and maintaining eye contact. or just don't swim when a shark sighting has been reported. I have seen some people that have gotten the proper technique down to actually get some sharks into a trance and make them more docile, but I think most of us would rather err on the side of caution and leave well enough alone. Sharks aren't the only dangerous fish in the sea. There are quite a few others out there that strike fear or revulsion into those that see them, like barracudas. These guys can grow up to 5 feet long and swim close to 40 miles per hour for short intervals. Get close enough and you can see the sharp teeth protruding from their mouths. Now, from what I've heard, attacks on people by barracudas are not that common. However, divers are advised against wearing shiny jewelry in areas that may be inhabited by barracudas, as they may mistake these precious gems for fish. Other fish in the sea have a lot more to fear from barracudas. Let's not forget what happened at the beginning of Finding Nemo. It doesn't matter if the fish is venomous or not either. They'll sink their teeth into ones that are nearly as large as them. Now, it's mainly the eyes and teeth of a barracuda that I find most frightening, but a scary face isn't unique to these fish. This is a stargazer. No, these fish aren't interested in observing the night sky from underwater. Instead, they're burying themselves in the seabed to snap up any fish that comes near them. You know, this almost reminds me of that old Viking image of the face on Mars, except a lot more terrifying. If that weren't enough, they also have venomous spines, and one species is even capable of producing electricity. God help anyone who stumbles over one of these on the beach accidentally. That one not scary enough? Okay, how about this one? This is certainly a pleasant-looking guy, and yes, that was sarcasm. If only that was what this fish used as its primary means of defense. No, sarcastic fringe heads hide out in tight spaces like shells or bottles on the seafloor, and they are extremely territorial. It'll attack anything that comes close to where it's made a home. If the creature venturing toward it is another sarcastic fringe head, we get, nope, 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 moving on. Oh, there's another fish with sharp teeth that likes to hang out in tight spaces. Moray eels certainly look scary, but they're not really aggressive. Towards humans, anyway. From what I understand, they are generally harmless unless provoked, and are actually rather timid. There have been a few lucky divers that have made friends with these eels, though. It's quite a remarkable scene. Don't try this without the proper expertise. You wouldn't want a moray biting you, as they have toxins covering them in the form of slime, some of which gets into their mouths. This is also why you shouldn't try eating one either. Yes, people have made dishes out of moray eels around the world. Why anyone would look at these and feel their stomach grumble, I can't imagine. No, morays are best left to their own devices and treated with respect. Lampreys, on the other hand,
once attached to a paddlefish, they suck out as much as they can. These beady-eyed bloodsuckers attach to bodies, snouts, even up into gills.
Yeah, I hate these guys. Now on the subject of ugly fish, here's one that's become somewhat of a meme. As disgusting as it looks here, this does give a bit of a misconception about this fish's true nature. Blobfish do not actually look like this in their natural environment. That's more like it. They swim at depths where the water pressure is about 100 times greater than at sea level. Blobfish also haven't got very much muscle mass, so their skin is pretty malleable. When brought up rapidly from the ocean depths, their soft tissue expands, and you can see what happens. Personally, I don't find this fish scary. I just thought that being the subject of a viral image, it would be good to include it for posterity's sake. You want scarier fish, you have to go down. Down deep. Real deep. There's a point at which the ocean stops looking nice and blue and becomes dark. No one in their right mind ought to go down here alone and unprotected, not just because of the wildlife, but also because of the environment. The pressure down here is a lot higher than any human can stand, so exploration via submarines is how we've learned about these reaches of the sea. The creatures that reside at these depths are some of the freakiest on the planet. You've got fish with giant mouths filled with teeth, of course. fish that glow in the dark, and fish that are a combination of both. The fish in the latter category mainly use their light-giving ability to hunt, or to attract mates in some cases. This ability, which is called bioluminescence, seems to be a common feature in these creatures of the depths. Because there's not much natural light down here, many of these fish have large eyes which are hypersensitive to light. Now for these fish, that's a useful adaptation. For anyone observing these fish in their natural environment, that just adds to the spooky factor in these animals. This barrel eye fish here can even shift its eyes a total of 75 degrees, and they look like a futuristic submarine. All in all, these are the sorts of creatures that belong in the depths. It almost seems as if the realms of the aphotic zone, the region of the sea that receives less than 1% of the incoming sunlight, are reserved for the lost souls of the ocean, a sort of deep-sea underworld. You can see where the inspiration for that rock bottom episode of SpongeBob originated. There's a lot we don't know about these parts of the ocean, so further exploration is required to enhance our knowledge of these reaches. But I think that task is best left to the scientists. Now, what I've shown you so far are the sea creatures that are notorious for their sharp jaws, ferociousness, and frightening, or just ugly, appearances. But there's one more ominous characteristic of certain marine life that can't go without discussion. It's bad enough that there are a lot of frightening faces down here. When there are toxins involved, my apprehension towards these ocean dwellers just intensifies tenfold. Now, toxic creatures can be grouped into one of two categories: those that are poisonous and those that are venomous. Poisonous ones will only be harmful if you try to ingest them in some way. Think of pufferfish, for example, or moray eels, which I mentioned already. They're considered a delicacy, but that's one dish I can pass up. The venomous ones, those that bite or sting you to inject their toxins, are the ones that strike up the most unease in me. You'd be surprised to learn which creatures have this ability. There are fish, of course. Beware of the colorful ones with spines on top, the scorpion fish types. They can raise their spines towards potential predators just like a scorpion can raise its tail toward any attacker, even if it means swimming upside down like this lionfish. As stunning as these guys look on full display, knowing what a lionfish's venom can do gives me no desire to be near one. Because they're considered an invasive species in oceans outside of the Pacific and Indian Ocean, people have been catching them for food. Maybe they're not as hazardous as pufferfish when properly prepared, but again, I have to say no. Now, as bad as lionfish are, they're not even close to the most venomous fish in the sea. As to which fish has that honor, well, let's just say that the title is set in stone. Yes, it's the stonefish, another ugly-looking guy that hangs out on the seafloor. As with stargazers, they tend to keep still on the ocean floor with the eyes and mouth being only visible. So beware of any rock formations on the seafloor. One small step on a stonefish could be one giant leap into your grave. Not all venomous fish are in typical fish form. There are also flat cartilaginous fish with barbed tails and ominous-looking eyes. We know them better as stingrays. Now, I think rays in general are some of the most fascinating sea creatures. Their motions through the sea make them look like underwater birds. Swimming alongside them does look like an incredible experience, and they are generally fine with people around. That is, if you behave yourself. Stingrays fall into the category of creatures considered harmless unless provoked. Irritate a stingray and their tail can do a lot of damage. The barbs in the tail blade make it difficult to remove, and it's best to let a medical professional attend to it. Mostly stings are inflicted on a person's legs when they accidentally step on a stingray, but fatalities can occur should a person's cardiovascular system receive the sting. There are a few places around the world where stingrays swim freely among humans. In places like the Cayman Islands or Bora Bora, you can wade through the shallow waters as these graceful swimmers hover around, usually in hopes of a treat. Yeah, stingrays actually aren't that bad if you know how to treat them. I don't think I could say the same thing about electric rays, though. Yeah, they're not really people-friendly, and there are other venomous animals around that no amount of gentle treatment or TLC will get you on their good side. Snakes are one of those animals that seem to be feared by many and admired by few. I'm not terrified by them, but they're not my favorite animal either. It seems like you always find one when you aren't looking for them, among the rocks or in the grass or almost anywhere. You'd think the ocean would be one place snakes would avoid. About 70 species of sea snakes, or kraits, swim through the oceans. These are among the deadliest serpents there are. Almost all sea snakes have venom. Some carry a lethal amount of it. Knowing what they can inflict with one bite is incentive enough for me to stay away from anyone I see in the ocean. Fortunately, they're not aggressive. But should one pop out of a crevice on a coral reef beside you, that's a good time to book it! What I've shown you so far in my menagerie of fearsome sea dwellers are those animals that can be classified as vertebrates. There's a backbone to them just as there's a backbone in all of us. However, a lot of creatures in the world do not have such an advantage. They call them invertebrates, and they far outnumber the backbone creatures we know and love. There are plenty of frightening ones around too, and undersea invertebrates are no exception. Case in point, cone snails. What might look like a pretty little shell to collect from the beach houses a dangerous mollusk inside. Protruding from its cone shell are two long appendages. One is a siphon that it uses to breathe and hunt for food. The other is a proboscis, which it uses to incapacitate its prey. That proboscis has a venomous barb inside, which, like sea snake venom, can be deadly. One quick jab from this snail and the fish goes down. Quick and snail. Those are two words I never thought could be said together in a sentence. Bottom line, this is not something to pick up should you find it. The fact that they can ingest a whole fish like this after paralyzing it makes my skin crawl, and there are several other boneless creatures that have this ability. Now, jellyfish, or sea jellies in more scientifically correct terms, are some of the most tantalizing creatures in the sea, but they are also some of the most dangerous. Just thinking about their long, stinging tentacles enveloping you and paralyzing you, and then, it's not even something I can talk about without getting squeamish. These were the creatures that actually gave me nightmares in my younger years, more so than sharks, actually. I think it may have something to do with the lack of a discernible face on a jellyfish. Now, I can't tell what any shark is thinking. I'm not Aquaman, but the presence of eyes, nostrils, and a mouth at the front gives me an indication of some cognitive ability present in their heads. Jellyfish don't even have a central nervous system. I think the only way they sense the presence of another life form is when it comes into physical contact with them. And of course, that other life form doesn't get away from it unscathed, if it gets away at all. There are two among them that stir up the fright within me most. Remember how I said that the stonefish was the most venomous fish in the ocean? Would you believe that there was a creature even more venomous? Well, here it is, the box jellyfish. Within its long tentacles is enough venom to kill a person within 5 minutes. Actually, I've heard it's considered the most venomous creature on Earth. They particularly present a problem to those living in Australia. Actually, that's where many of the creatures I've discussed can be found. You know, it's shocking. As much as there is to love about that nation, it's home to many of the most dangerous creatures on this planet. You've got to be resilient to deal with the Australian wildlife. In fact, that should be a question on the Australian citizenship test. Would you know what to do when faced with any dangerous, aggressive, and/or venomous creature? Anyway, what some lifeguards in Australia have to do to combat stings is wear pantyhose before entering the water. So not only is the box jellyfish deadly, it's diabolical. It's turning a bunch of Australian men into transvestites against their wills. This is clearly a jelly that is not to be trusted. But at least when you see one box jellyfish, it's really only one box jellyfish, not like this next creature. The Portuguese manowar. It looks like a jellyfish and is closely related to them. However, instead of being a single creature, the manowar is actually a colony of polyps. These polyps each perform a different function for the animal. There's a polyp for the head, or gas bladder, really, polyps for the tentacles, and polyps for digestion and reproduction. So it's like an army of creatures combined into one unit. The manowar name makes sense in that way. Again, they have long tentacles that they use to paralyze prey and feed themselves. The stuff of my nightmares. These same tentacles which feed the creature still maintain their stinging power long after the man of war dies. So it's not a good idea to personally greet one you find washed up on the beach. That's reason enough for me to stay far away from a man of war, swimming or beached. Now here is a creature that probably does strike fear in some people, and it had me petrified for a while too. Over time, however, my views on octopi and other cephalopods have changed. They may look a little bit creepy with their eyes and tentacles, but there are a lot of amazing things these guys can do. For one, they're immensely intelligent. Scientists have actually found ways to train octopuses to do things like getting through obstacle courses or open jars with crabs inside. They can use tools as well. So the octopus joins chimpanzees and crows as an animal that is capable of learning and retaining knowledge. Their efficiency in camouflage, means of defense, and lengths they'll go to protect their young make octopi some of the most fascinating animals in the sea. Okay, so there is one octopus to watch out for, the blue-ringed octopus. These guys are tiny, but are yet another creature armed with a potentially lethal amount of venom. Like other octopuses, blue rings can change color to avoid detection, but when threatened, they make their common names known. The first time I saw a picture of these guys, I thought that picture had some kind of effect added to it to make the blue rings more iridescent, but no, that's how they really look. People who pick these guys up and handle them are really putting themselves at risk by doing so. Unless this is some sort of death wish, this is not the way I'd recommend handling a blue-ringed octopus. The only safe way to have this creature on you is in the form of a tattoo. Of course, people might think you belong to that order of female bandits in that James Bond movie, but that's a lot better than death by an octopus, isn't it? As you can see, it pays to be vigilant when you're in the sea. There are a lot of things in the ocean that can either kill you or cause you immense pain if you're not careful. I'm aware that I might have left out a few animals, but I just wanted to highlight the ones that are most notorious for one reason or another. Although it can be a scary place, the ocean is still a fascinating destination. There are a lot of other intriguing and unique creatures down there, many of which aren't well understood. It would likely take more than an hour to give focus to the lion's share of what's in the ocean, and given how much we don't know about it, there's a good chance that there are even more nightmarish creatures that we don't yet know. There's always the chance that another sharp-toothed, venomous, or hideous being swims in the waters at some little explored location. Who knows where it'll be found, and who knows if it'll haunt the nightmares of many when it is. Well, I think that about does it for a discussion on sea creatures. I'd better be going. I'm not running off to hide under my bed or anything, I just don't want to make the video too long. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be seeing you. The video's over. Go home.